I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks for joining us. Big hour coming up here involving the trial of Chad Daybell, the so-called Doomsday Prophet. That case is getting close to wrapping up. There's just a few witnesses left, then the arguments, and then it'll be in the hands of the jury. Chad Daybell back in court today. Of course, this is all involving triple murder charges. Little JJ, his new wife's son, Tylee, his new wife's daughter, and Tammy, his first wife. Those are the victims. So what we're going to do in this hour is take a look at some of the biggest moments from the case that have happened, put some context on them, and then some great analysis from our think tank. So let's start by bringing in our Court TV legal correspondent. Is she with us? She's not with us? Where is she? Kelly Craft. Welcome to the program. Great to see you out there in Boise tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. So Kelly has been working hard all day. She works hard every day, but really hard today, gathering and putting together all of these big moments for us. So what is our first big moment we're going to take a look at?
Well, hi there, Vinny. Our first big moment that we wanted to talk about tonight is this never-before-seen body cam footage that was shown in court. This was about the third week of trial, and it's investigators showing up at Lori Vallow Daybell's apartment and asking her, where is JJ? Where is your little boy? So what happened here is Kay Woodcock, who is JJ Vallow's biological grandmother, she would always talk to JJ and see him, her as well as Larry, her husband, but then they couldn't get a hold of JJ any longer, so they called the authorities, and authorities went to do a welfare check on Lori. Well, what did Lori do? She would appear all frazzled to them. She kept telling her that her life has been a nightmare. She told them that little JJ Vallow was with her friend in Arizona. And then eventually they said, well, who is this friend? And she said, Melanie Gibb. And she said, Melanie Gibb's son also has autism, just like my little boy, JJ, who is special needs. Let's listen to some of that body cam footage and what she had to say.
So, who's the friend he's with?
My friend Melanie. Her son has autism. Her name's Melanie Gibb. I gave him all the information on the phone.
Okay, so he can call him?
Yeah.
This part.
Yeah. What is all this?
Well, that's why we're concerned, because it just was kind of weird.
It is very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me. Not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector. My other brother was in with my husband, who was trying to kill me for my $2 million life insurance costs. So I don't tell people the truth about where we are and what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I am a good person. Raised all of my kids. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in life, but everyone is causing me trouble right now.
We had two detectives over here
looking for you a little while ago.
Oh, because I was at the store.
And they ran into probably one of your brothers.
My brother and his friend, probably.
Oh,
They've been moving. Chad.
Chad from Rapid? Mm-hmm. What's his last name? Yeah, okay. All right.
So it's just a mess. Like, just constantly causing me trouble.
Chad the D-A-Y-B-E-L-L?
He's an author.
Vinny, I love that at the end there when Lori is saying, Chad, oh, he's an author. And I loved how the investigators were just asking Chad Daybell, and then talking about how you spell it. Then one of them went on to say, didn't his wife just die? Doesn't he have a bunch of daughters? And then Lori said, oh, yeah, he has a bunch of kids, just acting so nonchalant about who Chad Daybell is.
Unbelievable. All right, let's bring in our think tank tonight, get a little bit of analysis tonight. Joining us here live in studio, Daryl Cohen, criminal defense attorney, entertainment attorney, former assistant DA in Atlanta. Meg Strickler, criminal defense attorney, and the man behind the glasses, criminal defense attorney, Josh Schiffer. Great to have everyone here. So here's what I want to ask you about this, because this is Chad's trial, not Lori's trial. Does she come off in that video as someone who is very controlling, manipulative, and perhaps the one driving everything here?
I think Chad's last name is changed to Chad Daybell. He both dug funeral plots for the kids, and he's digging himself a conviction. So did she consider herself manipulative? Do we? I just think she is what she is. Nothing that we like, nothing that we want to see, but what we need to see.
But from the beginning, everyone's always wondering, who's the leader, who's the follower, who's making the moves, who's the one conspiring here? Does this do anything?
No, not at all. What Dow just did, they work hand in glove. She looks like a nut, but what really is telling here, she has police officers in her same room as her, in her house, asking her questions about her kids. And she's like, la, 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 versus being respectful to the detectives and telling them where they are. And she can't tell them where they are because they're dead.
So I've got kind of two perspectives on this, because don't you agree that it is natural for her to be so disheveled with law enforcement being in her house? If she doesn't have anything to hide, you would be natural and comfortable and maybe a little bit bubbly.
That's not what she is.
Most people are all freaked out and shut down. Now, when I see that video, my belief is this is her playing her role. She is out there. She's deeply involved with Chad. She knows exactly the trick that they're pulling on everyone, and they've worked on and discussed exactly what she's supposed to say when the police come poking around.
Agreed.
They were arm in arm, lockstep together. He manipulated her, she manipulated him, and the kids were killed.
Yeah, the part that troubles me the most about that video, though, is doesn't talk about JJ.
Horrible.
Doesn't talk about JJ.
That's horrible.
All right, let's bring back in Kelly Kraft, Court TV legal correspondent, as we continue taking a look at all these big moments. What's our second big moment?
Vinny, the second big moment is the text messages. So these alarming text messages that retired FBI agent Doug Hart, he read them on the stand. And what are they talking about? The death percentages for little JJ as well as Tylee. I believe that Tylee was at one point a .13, and Chad Daybell expresses to Lori that he's going to turn up the dial to make that death percentage go higher. And then JJ was at a point, Chad was saying he was sitting across the table from him, and that JJ, he was eating bacon, and he could tell that his death percentage was rising. So why don't we go ahead and listen to some of these text messages. We have our producers that are going to read them for us tonight.
I have been instructed to focus my efforts on Hillary, so I will.
Okay, find out her percentage for me, and JJ's.
She is .13. I turned up the pain to 10 and placed a spiritual virus in her. He is 99.99. Raphael visited him and told him to follow Amy into the light. I also assured him that James would live and take care of his mommy, which he will, with all of his heart and soul.
That is sweet. I miss you desperately. When you get home, check Tylee. She is being super sweet and helpful, and she cleaned her room. See if she got switched. Totally not her.
Yes, she was switched. Please let me know when you can talk, and I will explain it. One question. Do you want me to cause pain yet to those 2 3s you're riding with?
Probably hold off on them until we arrive. They will be a big mistake to deal with. But I'll text you if they start acting up, and we can zap them.
Sounds great. Yes, if they are going to act up, we'll at least give them a reason to scream. I love, cherish, treasure, and adore you.
What is the percentage now? What about JJ's too?
Tammy is at 3, JJ is at 2. Both are being heavily shielded to stop intruders.
2 and 3%, not 0?
I will explain when we talk.
Okay, still feeling hot for you. Please check JJ. He just woke up saying crazy stuff, and you'll go back to sleep. He is talking to Blake. It's weird.
JJ is still JJ. I am told his spirit recognizes Blake as evil and is unsettled by him.
How is JJ now?
Yes, he's at 0. He probably was partly through the veil talking to people, both light and dark.
Do you think there is a perfectly orchestrated plan to take the children, and we just have to wait for it to be carried out?
You are doing everything right, my love. The Lord told me she is right on track.
So what we gained from these text messages and this death scale of Chad Daybell is it kind of seemed that the closer a person was to 0 or then 99 would be the closer they are to death. So one end of the spectrum to the other over here, Vinny. So interesting text messages, to say the least, and scary.
Yeah, scary, and I think really bad for Chad. Let's bring back in our think tank. I think this is really, really bad for Chad Daybell. Extremely bad. I mean, he's the one here who's like zapping people.
It's basically the most concrete evidence we've got of are you kidding? Like full removal from the rest of humanity at this point. Like no one reads this and goes,
What's
oh no, these are too.
Yeah, can I cause you some pain?
Man, it depends on which of my girlfriends you're gonna. No, sorry. It really, this is crazy stuff. There's no way the jury reads this and isn't like, whoa.
So they're crazy, but it's still so scarily wrong to be talking about people who are their children.
Children.
And, you know, I'll talk about later. He's at a 2, he's at a 0.
But,
should I cause them some pain?
Yeah, he puts them down at 0, which means it's time to go.
To kill them.
He, as I say, his last name is now Chad, and from my view, Chad Daybell. He has dug his own grave.
Yeah,
all right. Everyone staying with us. We've got more up next. More of our countdown of the biggest moments from the trial of Chad Daybell, including this shocking moment.
I got the inspiration to go back to my original death percentages that helped us track Charles, Ned, etc. Tammy is very close. Her percentage has fallen steadily since Hiplo's left. It's encouraging.
Monday morning.
The ultimate betrayals.
Every episode of Accomplice to Murder.
Spell was broken when the handcuffs went click.
Friends and family turning on each other.
What he was willing to do for $1 million.
But just who is the puppet?
She was a master manipulator.
And who's pulling the strings?
Accomplice to Murder with Vinny Politan. Memorial Day Marathon. Starting Monday morning, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Tonight, we're taking a look at the trial of the Doomsday Prophet Chad Daybell and all of the biggest moments. Kelly Craft, Court TV legal correspondent, is with us in Boise, Idaho tonight as we count down all these big moments. What do you have for us next?
Vinny, the next thing that we want to talk about tonight is the autopsy of Tammy Daybell. So a few weeks ago, we heard from the state's witness, the chief deputy medical examiner from the state of Utah. This is Dr. Lily Marsden. And what did she say? She talked about that the cause of death for Tammy Daybell was asphyxia and that the manner of death was homicide. Then fast forward to defense counsel's case, the case he put on for Chad Daybell and defending him. And what did his expert witness say? So she came in, this is Dr. Catherine Raven, and she determined that the cause of death should be ruled undetermined. Why don't we go ahead and listen to some of their testimony?
As you went through that process, did a cause of death become apparent for Tammy Daybell?
No.
Did you find anything abnormal or anything that caught your attention in doing that internal exam?
The only thing abnormal we really found on Tammy's examination was that she had a lot of fluid in her lungs, which we call pulmonary edema, and she had a foamy fluid in her airways, so her trachea and her larger bronchi.
Did you find any explanation or anything to explain the cause of death?
Not with toxicology. When we have negative autopsies like this, so it's not an autopsy that's completely normal, but there is no cause of death that we're able to see. There's a few things that we have to consider. So we consider, seizure disorders, we consider cardiac arrhythmias, and as far as non-natural causes, we consider asphyxia. And asphyxia is a diagnosis of exclusion. And in our opinion, we did thoroughly exclude the other potential causes of death with a negative autopsy.
Is it standard practice when there's no signs and there's no indication of what could have caused the death to take a jump to asphyxia? Is that what would be the common practice?
In my opinion, no. The way I practice and the way I've always taught people to practice in the institutions I've been associated with, again, we would call them undetermined. It's not, we do get cases where we don't find anything. We don't jump to conclusions or speculate. We just say these are things that might have happened. We don't know, so we're better left calling it undetermined.
So you heard her say undetermined. So that conflicts, obviously, with the state's witness who had a different take on Tammy Daybell's death. Very important testimony from both witnesses. So it will be up to the jury to decide, because Chad Daybell, one of the things he's on trial for is the murder of Tammy Daybell.
Yeah, and I think that's the charge he is most concerned about, right? Obviously, he wants to walk, but this is the one, like, you are charged with murdering the mother of your children. Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Darrell Cohen, Meg Strickler, Josh Schiffer. Is there any chance that the jury could potentially find him guilty of murdering the children who were buried in his backyard and not guilty?
You can't.
Or a hung jury on what happened to Tammy?
Do you want to lay bets? I can lay bets.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to play poker on this, there's no way in God's green earth that he's not going to get found guilty of all three.
So it's all or nothing.
But to me, it doesn't matter. If he's convicted,
it does matter.
No, it
does matter.
He's convicted of one. He goes bye-bye. He may go bye-bye with a needle.
Yeah.
It matters not.
The issue is, can it? Yes. Don't put anything past a jury. Juries can do lots of things.
Yeah, but not this
Very
time.
often that don't make any
It's
sense.
the strongest defense case, and I know none of them are strong, okay? But of the three murders, is the strongest defense the murder of Tammy or of the children?
It is of Tammy. I will give you that. That of the three horrible stories we have here, the least of it is Tammy. But I am convinced that when you look at this in totality, the jury is going to find the correct guilty verdict.
But that's exactly what the defense is trying to do, is cleave these two apart. You've got the kids and you've got Tammy. And what we just watched were two highly paid, super special experts that the judges said, trust them, they're experts.
Yeah, but the one expert just said it was undetermined. She still died.
But that's exactly it.
The difference
Beyond
here is
a reasonable doubt means that expert said, I can't tell you if this was murder or not.
But they're not going to listen to that expert.
Are you bothered at all by the state's expert, the way she came to her conclusion? Like, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, so it had to be this.
I am bothered by that. I do think that is a little bit of incompetence on that side, 100%. And if it had been a trial just on that storyline, there is definitely some issue. Yeah.
But there's so much else.
If the penultimate issue was what's the cause of death, there's no way this is close to beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the big issue, because without this death certificate and cause of death, it's either a homicide or it's not.
But either
and that's
way,
the important part.
It doesn't matter.
I get it. It
In my
just
view,
doesn't
he
matter.
is going to be convicted at least of two, maybe 2 out of 3. In baseball, he'd be hitting a home run. Here, he's digging his own grave.
Let's bring back in Kelly Craft in Boise. Kelly, what's the next big moment we're going to look at tonight?
Vinny, the next thing that we wanted to talk about is the testimony of Chad Daybell's children, the children that belong to him and Tammy. And so Emma Murray, she took the stand first, and she really just came across as very shy, and she talked about being shy, and also really was just kind of in a way appearing that she was taking responsibility for anything that was brought to light in the state's case negative about her father. She talked about her mother Tammy's health, saying that those bruises on Tammy Daybell's arms, well, she would get bruises just from carrying groceries. She talked about her mother being so tired she'd come home from work right after school because they worked together. Her mother was a librarian at the school, and that she would go right to bed some nights. Let's listen to some of Emma's testimony.
Your dad ever talked to you about death percentages?
Yes.
Did your dad ever talk to you about people being close to death?
Yes.
Do you recall any specific people your dad talked to you about being close to death?
Yes.
And who was that?
Well, my mom was one of the people, but it was not death so much as how connected your spirit was to your body. My mom would feel lightheaded and say she didn't feel quite connected to herself, and they would reconnect her spirit to her body.
When your dad would talk to you about castings, did he explain to you anything about the body having to die?
No.
explain anything to you about the body having to be destroyed?
No.
And again, didn't talk to you about zombies?
No.
And also Garth Daybell, he took the stand and he said things along the same lines as his sister Emma, saying that his mother would be extremely tired, that she would have fainting spells. He also recalled that night when he was at home, he said that he was watching YouTube videos up until about 3 o'clock in the morning, but prior he had walked past his parents' bedroom, saw them lying in bed together. Then he heard a thump and his father asked him to come in and help with his mother. Let's listen to some of that testimony.
And then when you walked into your parents' bedroom, what exactly did you observe?
I observed my mother had rolled partially out of bed with her legs entangled in the sheets. And my instinct was, oh, she needs help. So I immediately grabbed her by the shoulders and lifted her up back into the bed.
Okay. And at that point, you felt her arms were cold?
Yeah, I felt she was cold and stiff, and
okay.
And she was gray, and I realized she's not been breathing.
Okay. Okay. And at some point between the time you got home at 1 o'clock and the time you went to sleep at about 3 o'clock, did you hear anything or any indication that there was any kind of sound or struggle?
I heard nothing.
And Garth was asked by the state if he had changed his story a few times. One thing in particular about saying to some people that he had found his mother on the couch. He said, no, I never said that. So he pretty much stuck to whatever he was planning on testifying to. Vinny?
All right, let's bring back in our think tank. The kids are all in. They do not believe it. They're actually trying to help Dad here. Does that move a juror?
No, it does not. What it does is it tells me that there are two living victims. The dead are deceased and they're the victims. These two kids don't want to lose their dad, and they are looking, in my view, the other way and ignoring the real evidence because he's my dad.
They're in denial. They grew up with that cuckoo-ness. And so the fact that he's talking about going to his mother and she's gray, did you call 911? Where's the panic? Where's the emotion there? I understand why there's not emotion. Perhaps he is still in shock all this time later, and it's very difficult to speak about. But he comes from a dysfunctional world, and the two of them look like they're still singing that dysfunctional song. I didn't think it helped anything.
Yeah, if it helped anybody, it was the state. Because
in what way?
Because everybody sat and gave very appropriate attention and took these two deeply traumatized young people very seriously. Treated them very, very well. Gave them a lot of attention. And then as soon as they were out of the room, I imagine everybody that watched that testimony glanced at someone next to them with big expressions on their face, because what they just listened to was insane. Nuts. Oh, my sibling is closer to death, according to. Are you kidding? It's got to terrify some of these jurors that Chad Daybell and Lori are walking out there.
It makes him look like they're part of his cult.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
And in a way they are.
Yes.
Because that's where they grew up. That was their world. That was the whole expanse of their world. It wasn't out here, it was here. And this is what they learned, this is what they knew, and this is what they're having to deal with. And my heart breaks for these two kids, regardless of whether they realize we should or not.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This was not an act.
No,
Chad Daybell wasn't pulling a trick and then going back home and giggling about it with the other people in on it. No, this was true belief. Look at those kids.
True believers. Up next.
We're not done looking at the most compelling testimony and moments from the Doomsday Prophet's death penalty triple murder trial. We'll take a look at more moments like this.
Are they seizing stuff again? They're searching.
back. The trial of the so-called Doomsday Prophet Chad Daybell is winding down in Boise, Idaho. We're getting close to the end. So tonight we're taking a look at all the big moments from this case. Kelly Craft still with us in Boise where it's all happening. Kelly, what's the next big moment you have tonight?
Vinny, we thought this next moment was a really big one because it's the jailhouse phone calls between Chad and Lori. So keep in mind, Lori is sitting behind bars. The children have not been found yet, so she's behind bars. This is about February 20th, 2020. She was arrested on child endangerment charges. And Chad Daybell, he's free as a bird. He's at home, and they're conversing. Lori's in jail. They're talking 10 to 12 times a day. And one phone call in particular caught the attention of Detective Hermosillo. And what did they talk about during this jailhouse phone call? Well, a project that was taking place on Chad Daybell's property. So throughout this phone call, you can hear Chad giggling. Lori's asking Chad for reassurance that the project is going forward, that everything is going as planned. She asks about a 3% trouble ratio, saying at the beginning of this whole project, we thought it was only a 3% chance that there was going to be in trouble with this plan, but now it seems there's a 100% chance. Why don't we go ahead and listen to some of these phone calls?
I asked him what we talked about, and he's very optimistic.
It was very optimistic for you, or he's very optimistic it could happen?
He's very optimistic for both of us.
He doesn't know his own project timeline.
He said, stick with it.
And the people are like 3 months out. Like,
I mean,
when they estimated they'd have it done, and they're like, well, we had so many problems. We couldn't get to the backyard. We had to pull a crane over the house to get these huge rocks for the waterfall.
it's just a weird situation, but you're exactly right. Yeah, it takes forever.
Yeah, there's always something comes up. Well, we didn't know when we dug in your backyard we were going to find whatever.
You just are spectacular, and the Lord is going to use those talents. We're on earth at this time for that purpose.
So you hear throughout that phone call, Chad Daybell reassuring Lori that everything's going to be okay. It was that very phone call that prompted investigators to search Chad Daybell's property the very next day. And what did they find? The remains of JJ and Tylee.
Unbelievable call. I mean, their demeanor is just like they don't have a worry in the world. Unbelievable. Let's bring in our think tank. Still with us, Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Josh Schiffer. It's amazing. This is one day before their entire world's come crumbling down, and it turns into murder charges, murder case. Chad gets locked up, but here they're like oblivious to what is going on and what's about to happen.
I think this was, for me, the highlight of the entire trial, because you really got insight into them. It's like they're unveiled, and you get to hear them speaking, and they're giggling, and they're absolutely evil laugh, I took it as.
They thought they were going to get away with this.
Well,
Exactly.
And it's the exclamation point when the state's making the ultimate punishment argument. Because that's really what it's going to come down to, are using these individual pieces of evidence when the fulcrum is ready for the big ask. And at some point, towards the end of this case, the state's going to be making the biggest ask. And they're going to need to punctuate it with pieces of information like this, where literally they are joking and laughing about the dead children in the yard. Now listen, I tell some terrible jokes. I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, that.
And they know people are listening. Sorry, Daryl.
No, it's good. I'm just thinking that we can do what we want. This is just a soap opera for us. Who cares? A little piece here, a little piece there. They'll never get us until they did.
Yep, exactly.
Cruel indifference. The shocking the conscious.
It's slamming the podium when they do it. That's what they're going to say in their closing for the death penalty.
Oh, you know
yes,
the emotional setup for that summation.
Yes.
They're well armed. They got lots of material.
They deserve one thing. He deserves one thing: to be buried by the very shovel that he used to bury those kids.
I agree.
I heard it for the first, we heard it for the first time in this trial. We hadn't heard it before, and it floored us because we had heard the call on the day they were digging it up, and you know their demeanor's down here because they realize what's about to happen, but they're just like giggling, laughing. Not a good look, not a good sound. Let's go back out to Kelly Craft in Boise. And what have you got in store for our final big moment from this case tonight?
Vinny, the last thing that we wanted to talk about tonight is that steamy romance novel, if you will, that Chad Daybell was writing to Lori. And so what he's doing is he's sending her a series of texts in which he's telling her about the first moment that they met, and that when he touched her hand, he felt a shock. So our very own Cody Thomas is going to read these text messages for us, this steamy romance novel. Let's take a listen.
They would both attend the same event in mid-November, and it seemed like that day would never arrive. He knew they had been married before, and they had been close friends with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. That relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. They hungered for each other, and he leaned forward and fulfilled a promise he had made to her a few days earlier. He gently kissed her tender lips, and the same heavenly electricity filled his entire body. The passionate magic they had felt many centuries earlier came surging back powerfully. James moved to the couch, and Elena straddled him effortlessly, as if they had done this thousands of times before. She fit perfectly on him, and they pressed their loins tightly against each other. They were still fully clothed, but the intensity of the intimacy was undeniable.
So these text messages just play right into the state's theory that this case is all about sex, lies, and money, and those texts pretty much just sum it up. Vinny?
All right, Kelly Craft in Boise, great job tonight. Thank you so much. Let's bring back in our think tank. To me, this tells me exactly why Chad was doing what he was doing. It was about the sex. It was always about the sex. He needed the money for the sex. He needed people out of the way for the sex. He needed to be the leader of this cult to get the sex, but that was it. That was his little pot of golden hair at the end of the rainbow.
So that was who he was. He was the leader of the band. Excuse me, Disney. He was the leader of the band. And he was manipulating. He had the greed. He wanted the sex. He wanted it all. And he was a king.
But the fame and the power is just the means to the end. The end was the sex. Everything else that they talk about, the money, he only needed the money to get the sex. Because Lori's not coming without the money.
It's all a sideshow about getting into Lori and being with Lori and getting the reward he'd wanted for his entire life. And he was going to rely on whatever kind of religious he can make up. He's already been married forever. He's solved that problem, because all he wants is his dream. His dream is to be intimate with a Lori.
Yeah. And I mean, she like literally fell on his lap because she shows up at this thing and she's going after him. She's got the hots for him. But everything that he did, because even before there was Lori, there were other women. And we've heard that he was making some plays for other women as well. But when one comes in looking like Lori and wanting him, I mean, it was the perfect storm for him. And yes, I said storm.
But I agree with you. There's pieces. There are pieces, and all pieces have to click in. So his fanciful writing has to click in there, to stroke his ego in addition to everything else.
It's the fact that he was that guy in college that learned to play guitar just to meet that.
Of course, every rock band is formed to meet girls.
Exactly.
Before Lori, he only had sex mates. With Lori, he had a sex and a soulmate. Unfortunately,
he didn't have sex mates. He had one woman his whole life.
No, one legitimate woman. One woman he was married to. There were others before, were there not?
No, not before he got married. Look at him. He's like 12 years old when he got married.
Not before he married. Before he lost his wife to an early death.
No, well, I think he made plays for other women, but I don't think any of them took the bait from the prophet.
Yeah, I think that Chad had what we would colloquially call a frustrated fantasy life for, I believe, all of his existence. And then when the Lori shows up, it's like the whole world opens up for him.
Yeah, and I think for Lori, she used the sex to get the power.
Absolutely.
She used the sex to get the power.
No.
He used the power to get the sex, but he also needed the money to pay for it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because it's always better in Hawaii.
You see,
It's always with a big S.
Yeah.
He should have just gone after the powerful, sexy,
now.
brilliant, successful woman.
There you
If I
go.
listen to the pros,
We're
man.
out of time. Josh Schiffer, Meg Strickler, Daryl Cohen, thank you so much.